Punisher kills the Marvel Universe. Punisher. Endgame.
In Hell's Kitchen, a group of children are bullying a young Matt Murdock. A young Frank Castle steps in and stops the fighting. Castle tells Matt to stand up to bullies or they'll never stop before walking away. In the present day, a fierce battle erupts in Central Park as the Avengers and the X-Men clash against an alien invasion. Frank is speeding towards the park as he tells his partner that his family is there. The Avengers and X-Men are victorious against the invasion. Frank arrives and runs into the park, where Daredevil is scolding the heroes for not evacuating the civilians. Captain America tells Daredevil that there wasn't enough time. Cyclops then tells Daredevil that it was unavoidable for civilians to get caught in the crossfire. Daredevil notes the casualties included a young woman and her children. Frank rushes in, distraught at the sight. Cyclops approaches him and says that they are sorry about his family. Frank then turns and shoots Cyclops in the head and turns to the Avengers and X-Men. He begins shooting at the group, hitting Hawkeye in the head and Shadowcat several times in the body. Wolverine, enraged, slashes Frank across the cheek, but Colossus intervenes just in time before he can land a killing blow. Frank is sent to court, where Matt Murdock is his lawyer. Despite Murdock's attempt, Frank is sentenced to life in prison. Instead of prison, Frank is taken to a secluded house by a man named Kesselring. Inside, he introduces Frank to a group of people who have been injured, either directly or indirectly, by superpowered beings. He then gives Frank a mission to eliminate anyone who claims to be a superhuman. Frank, without hesitation, accepts. In a sewer, Spider-Man and Venom are in battle. As Spider-Man realizes they're surrounded by tasers, they are electrocuted. As the symbiote separates from Brock, Frank arrives. He takes out Brock, and Spider-Man asks who Frank is, to which he states, the Punisher. Spider-Man asks why he's being punished, but Frank shoots him. While leaving, Frank gives an answer to the question,
"'Cause somebody had to be first."
Frank goes into a van where he meets Micro, who lost his legs in a battle with Doc Ock. The Hulk is seen rampaging in the streets, where Frank shoots a tracker on his back. Later that evening, Frank finds Banner, who wakes up just in time for his execution. His next attack is Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Frank manages to get through security and fights the Kingpin. The brutal fight ends with a shot to the head. Kingpin is no more. However, the body falls on Frank, trapping him as he gets captured once again by the police and once again sentenced to life. And once more, Kesselring breaks Frank out, and the mission continues. Frank then sneaks into Latveria, where he fights a losing battle against Dr. Doom. Doom is about to land the finishing blow when Frank places a magnetic mine on Doom's mask. The mine disables all of Doom's robots. Frank, seeing that Doom has survived the blast, states that he has all the time in the world. He then grabs a hammer and begins to finish things with Doom. Frank enters the armory and sees all the weapons that he will use to continue his plan. On the moon, Magneto and other villains are seen battling the X-Men, as both sides state that the other called this war. They quickly realize that they have been tricked. However, this comes too late, as a nuke that Frank found in the armory lands before them. Wolverine is seen depressed, drinking, and lamenting about how all his friends are dead, and Captain America can't do anything about it. Frank then appears behind Wolverine and gloats about being the one responsible. Wolverine pops his claws and charges at Frank, but Frank throws him through a chain-link fence, remarking that Wolverine isn't at his best.
"That's fine,"
Frank mutters.
"I just want you to feel what's coming."
During the fight, Frank takes Wolverine's own claws and uses them against him, impaling him before throwing him into a nearby generator. The electric surge electrocutes Wolverine beyond the point of regeneration. Kesselring and his allies note that Frank has exceeded all expectations and that they have the perfect weapon. A montage unfolds, revealing Frank's growing list of victims, including the Human Torch, Ghost Rider, the Thing, and the Green Goblin. Eventually, Frank is captured and sent back to prison, but once again he's bailed out. Frank tells Matt he's killed 500 times and that the system failed him. Matt tells Frank that he cares about him, but Frank coldly replies,
"Forget about me."
3 months later, Frank is fighting Captain America. Captain confronts Frank, expressing disappointment, stating that they were once soldiers together, but now Frank has become a disgrace. Frank responds by explaining that their wars were never the same and that he's learned to carefully assess the situation before acting. Taking advantage of the opening, he then pulls out a revolver and shoots Cap in the head. At Kesselring's house, a party is thrown in Frank's honor, but Frank dismisses it, saying his actions aren't worth celebrating. He tells Kesselring that he's done once he takes out Daredevil. Kesselring scolds Frank, claiming there will always be a new generation of heroes to replace the old ones, and that Frank will never be free from his mission. He belongs to Kesselring. Enraged, Frank shoots Kesselring, then leaves. Before he departs, he tells Micro to find purpose in his own life and sets off for his final mission. In Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil meets Frank at a rooftop, stating that this was where it all started. Frank begins the fight, to which Daredevil comes and kicks Frank off the roof. Frank lands on a car. Daredevil knees Frank in the face. As Frank lies on the ground, Daredevil tells him to give up. Frank responds that he's just completing his mission, but Daredevil warns him not to let his wrath consume him. In a moment of humanity, Daredevil puts his hand out. Frank grabs his hand, but stabs Daredevil instead. As he falls, Daredevil removes his mask, revealing himself as Matt Murdock. His last words to Frank are, "There's always someone under the mask, Frank, but you killed us all." Frank then points his gun to his chin and states,
There's one more to go.